G'day and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be answering the question that everybody has been asking. Which of these two radios is better? We've got the Jumper T18, or 18, that's a big number, and the RadioMaster T16s. So you'd think 18's got to be better than 16, even if the 16 has an S after it, but not necessarily true. I'm going to cut to the chase here. Now, I could bore you with hours and hours and hours of comparisons and teardowns and all that sort of stuff, but if you've only come to find out which of these two radios is the best, in my considered opinion, it's this one. It's the RadioMaster. It has fewer flaws than the Jumper. So now, if you're intrigued, please bear with me, and I'll tell you why I think the RadioMaster is a better radio. Now, on the face of it, both of these radios are very similar, and they're derived from the original Jumper T16. This is the Pro model with the Hall effect sticks, but they're derived from this. Now, this was a breakthrough kind of radio when it was released because it had multi-protocol module, it ran OpenTX, it was pretty much the same layout as a Tyrannus because it had all the same switches in the same places, but it had a nice big bright colour screen, although I don't like colour screens. A lot of people do like colour screens, even if I don't. It had a thumb wheel, like the old JRs. Remember the old JRs with a thumb wheel on there? And it was just, a pretty kick-ass radio. A lot of people bought them, a lot of people have used them, a lot of people love them. There's been a few issues though. I haven't had any problems with this particular unit, but other people have said, the ribbon cables in the back give issues and so forth. Generally speaking, they're not ribbon cables, they're flat flex cables. They tend to be pretty reliable unless you are exposing them to a lot of vibration or movement. And I would have thought in the back of a radio like this, not a lot of movement. If you have this sitting in the back of your truck and driving along a bumpy, gravelly road, yeah, you're probably going to get problems. But if you treat your transmitter properly, the flat flex cables in these shouldn't cause too much trouble. If they do, Jumper is happy to mail you out a replacement set. I don't know if they charge, whatever, but it's not a good look that they have to mail out. And of course, this whole thing goes right back. Jumper's had a bit of a checkered history in terms of getting things right. Now, my original Jumper, which had the separate multi-protocol module, I had problems with the SD card. The SD card wouldn't read, and then the thumb wheel was crappy. So they sent out this kit. Sent out a little kit which included a new SD card reader and a new thumb wheel, right? That was supposed to solve the problems. So you think, okay, they learned from that, great. But let's take a look now. Let's take a quick look at, first of all, at the Jumper. Now, a lot of people who've just bought the Jumper T18 have found the thumb wheel's no good and the SD card doesn't read properly. That's exactly the problems they had with the very first one. So why did they repeat that problem? Did they not learn from that mistake? And that's concerning. I'm always concerned when manufacturers make the same mistakes time and time again, because obviously they're not listening to the customers. No one was happy to have to replace bits in their original Jumper. Nobody should have to be upset that the same problem seems to be occurring with some of the new ones. Now, they said it was just the review samples, but apparently I was watching Pawel's channel. I'll put a link in the description to that video, and he was saying other people Pawel has experienced this, and other people have experienced the same problem on their production radios. So, what do you do? It doesn't give you a lot of confidence in Jumper themselves. And so the other one is the RadioMaster. Now, they seem to have done a better job. They seem to have just spent a bit more time. Look, this has got a metal scroll wheel. This feels chintzy and cheap and, sort of thing you'd find on a Banggood toy radio. This feels professional. It's metal. It has a much better feel to that particular scroll wheel. And it's the little things that often make a huge difference in terms of how you like a radio. Now, there's other bits I don't like so much. I mean, they've put these buttons on here. They're in the shape of, I don't know, spanners? What are they? There's some strange shape there and they backwards, I don't know. I just like plain buttons. So, hey, there's pros and cons. The ideal radio would be a blend of the best of this and the best of that, but we can't have that. We've just got to choose one or the other. Right, so I already did a video on the styling of the Jumper T18, the faux carbon fibre. You might like that, you might not. But there are some other subtle differences. Notice we have 3 buttons here, but we have 4 buttons on the Jumper. That's quite nice. Page up and page down are just so much easier than having to scroll and mess around. So they did a good job there, page up and page down. Now, there's also, what are these buttons? Oh, these are the sys. This is the sys buttons there. Yeah, as you can see, I haven't spent a lot of time playing with the radio. This is a teardown, basically, this video. But they've got the 2 power buttons here on the Jumper, which is kind of nice because you don't have to mess around. If you want to turn it off, you don't have to mess around holding the button down till it goes off. You can just press these both at once. These are little things. Both companies have tried to innovate and tried to improve on the basic Jumper model. And to a degree, both companies have succeeded. But to another degree, they've both failed because they've overlooked some of the real basics. Like, as I mentioned in my first video, these sliders, there's virtually no detent there. It's so hard to get the center position. Now, RadioMaster, I don't know if it's just this one, but theirs is a lot firmer. It is still kind of, but it's much firmer. And that was one of my complaints. And when I spoke to RadioMaster, they said, yes, we've listened to your complaints. We're going to deal with them. This is almost clicky. This almost clicks. It's much better than the Jumper. Now, we've got these little ones up here. This has also got a firm detent on that one and on that one. They both have firm detents in the center. With the Jumper, where's that? A very faint detent in that one, possibly. I can't. This one, nothing. Can't feel a damn thing. So they have listened. The RadioMaster has listened. Jumper has said, nah, we don't care. We're even going to make the same mistakes in our next radio in respect to the SD card reader and this little twirly knob. So from purely a warm fuzzy feeling aspect, the Jumper's already way out in front. Let's take it a bit further. One of the things is batteries. Let's turn them over. They both use batteries. Isn't it surprising? There's no coal required. And there's a different size battery compartment. Now this has a battery compartment for 18650s, and you can throw a couple. It even comes with a holder, I think. I'm not sure. I can't remember if I had the holder with that. This one has a much larger. It has an 18650 holder, but it's a much larger compartment. So you can put a LiPo in there. Much harder to put a LiPo in here because it's a smaller compartment. Gives you much more choice, much more flexibility for your battery operation. That's kind of good. That's kind of nice. I like that. Let's also look at the ergonomics on the back here. The grips on the Jumper are quite thin, and there's no real meat to them. Grips on the RadioMaster, nice firm. When you hold this radio, it really does feel nice. You can get a finger grip on there. You're not going to drop this, especially if you're a nitro flyer with oily hands. You're not going to drop this radio. You get a really good grip. So this wins in that case. However, the Jumper has the foldy bendy handle, which is really, really handy. I love that foldy bendy handle. RadioMaster, it's a fixed metal handle. It's far less convenient. Putting that in your backpack and things, this gets in the way. It's much nice to have it folded out of the way. And you can actually see that because another plus for the Jumper comes with this wonderful little carry case. I love carry cases for radios because I'm always throwing radios in my pack. And if I can throw a radio in my pack, I use it much more because I go out and fly in the field, walk around, that sort of thing. Now, so here we go. You get this lovely little carry case from Jumper. Fantastic. And the radio fits in it. As long as you turn that knob around there. Radio fits in it beautifully. Zip it up. Perfect. And I thought, oh, hey, I could use this for the Jumper. For the RadioMaster, but the RadioMaster won't fit in there because the damn handle doesn't fold. So, man, it's, as I say, it's all pluses and minuses. There's no perfect radio. You just got to take the compromises that go with each of these radio. So those are the external things. Also, if we look along the bottom here, there's nothing on the bottom of the Jumper. We've got connectivity up the top through this little thing here. We've got a USB-C and a trainer plug or headphones. I don't know. What is that? Trainer or headphones? I don't know. I'd have to look at the manual. It's not marked. There's no. I mentioned that before. There's no marking on there. So there's something in the bay here. No, that's it. It's pretty lean pickings for interfaces. That's it. That's all you get. However, if you look at the bottom of the Jumper, well, first of all, you've got the same little thing up here, USB-C, and this one's even labelled. It says DSC. So what is that for? I assume that then is for the Jumper, for the trainer lead. I don't know. DSC. So it's labelled, but it doesn't make any sense to me anyway. But underneath, they've got another little cover here you can peel off. Look. And in here, oh, come on, hurry up. There's another USB jack. There is your SD card, which is actually can be accessed without taking the battery cover off, and a couple of connectors here which look like they are UARTs. So the beauty of that is with these couple of UARTs here, you can add extra functionality to this radio with an external unit and plug it in there. For example, you could even add the ADS-B alarm that I'm working on. You could have a UART out from there, or you could build it into this radio. You just whack a GPS on here, write some scripts, and in theory, if you had a USB connection to a ADS-B receiver and GPS, you could have your own, all integrated into your transmitter, or something velcroed on the back, ADS-B alarm to tell you when aircraft were coming. Woohoo! Now, you can't do that easily with the Jumper. It doesn't have that connectivity. There's no UART ports. It's all, so again, points for the RadioMaster. So I'm feeling kind of in love with RadioMaster, not so in love with Jumper. But that's sort of some of the objective things, that's some of the external things. Let's get inside, let's rip the back off these things, see how well they're made. I haven't had the back off yet, so you'll be learning with me, but I'm expecting These are going to be pretty similar. There's not going to be a lot of difference because they are all derived from this basic unit here, and no one's going to have reinvented the wheel by completely redesigning a circuit board or changing parts to a great degree. So I'm expecting, apart from the RF module, because this is the jumper, this has the 900 megahertz module in there, and this apparently is a 900 megahertz antenna. And that's another, just while I remember, because I'll forget otherwise, this is a 2.4 gigahertz antenna on the RadioMaster, and this is a 900 megahertz antenna on here. So how do you transmit 2.4 gigahertz, which is most of your transmission, through this radio? Well, it's got a little PCB antenna inside for the 2.4 gig transmitter, which is acceptable if you're not flying too far or flying a lot of proximity behind trees, but you are going to have a penalty in terms of range with a built-in antenna. And I think there's only one of them. We'll find out when we tear it apart. So you're going to suffer a range penalty on 2.4. So if you're going to fly most of your stuff on 2.4 and you like pushing the limits, this is not a good radio for that. This would be a better radio because the external antenna is more efficient, and you can also orient it to suit the antenna on your model, because remember, cross-polarizing antennas really does reduce your range. So if you're holding your radio like this, the internal antenna, I think, is pretty much going to be horizontal. And if you turn around, horizontal antennas do not have good, if we look at it like this, horizontal antennas do not have much strength coming out the side. So if you happen to be standing here and you fly your model way down there, that way you can fly at a range because there's a big null point off there and a big null point off there. Whereas if you're flying with this, you can put that out there. If you're using a 2.4 gig antenna on one of these rubber ducky ones, if you put your antenna out there, then you can fly as far as you want to the sides without getting in the null, but you can't fly off the end. It's just a factor. Most people, it won't be too much of an issue because most people don't fly that far away. Certainly if you're a line of sight flyer, not going to be an issue. I doubt you would ever run out of range with this radio, even with its built-in 2.4 gig transmitter. But if you're doing any FPV, might be worth thinking about. Okay, let's get into the jumper. First thing you always do is disconnect the battery. Always do that, because in case you stuff up, you're not going to blow something up. And I've got a couple of these are LG cells, I think. Why am I using such expensive high capacity cells or high current cells in one of these radios? I don't know. If we look in here, there's the SD card for the jumper. It's not accessible from the outside. You've got to take your battery catch off and get in there. So there's your micro SD card, there's your input. There's no other UARTs, no other connections in there. So as I say, that's pretty plain Jane. Now these rubber covers will have to come off. I don't know, I've never done this on this one. They should just, here we go, look, see, they just pull off. Don't be afraid, children, you can rip it apart. So there we go, and that should give us access to some screws. Indeed, there are some screws, looks like there. I'll get my screwdriver. I'm not going to waste your time as you watch me unscrew things, and we'll do a jump cut. Okay, so there were indeed 6 screws. They're all the same size, so you don't have to worry too much, but do make sure that you put them somewhere safely. I think we may. Do we have to undo the top as well? We might have to undo these Allen key screws, I'm not sure, but we'll try levering open from the bottom. Here we go. We're learning together. Oh, hold on. We've got some side covers. Do they have to come off? I don't know. Not very clear. I think they do. I think they might have to come off. No, perhaps not. I don't know. Perhaps I should have watched someone else's video on this. Then I wouldn't have had to fart around myself. Jump cut. Okay, here we are, girls and boys. We've got the back off. Let's have a bit of a browse around and see what we've got here. Main circuit board, ARM processor. I'll look more closely at that in a moment. This is pretty crappy. Oh my God, seriously. This is a pre-production, but hang on, I'll just pull in here. You want to see this. Here is the flat flex cable that goes from the circuit board to the screen. Look, what a disaster this is. It's kind of all kinked up. No, this is why flat flex cables break. If you get them bent and kinked like that, they can. No, that's terrible, Muriel. I know this is a pre-production from what I gather, one of the early productions, but seriously, if you're sending something out to a reviewer, make sure it's not mangled, please. Come on. I don't know. But yeah, as a jumper just seemed to have a habit of just throwing stuff out the door. I mean, all the reviewer samples have been flawed. Just about every one I've got has been flawed because something wasn't done properly. That's not a confidence-inspiring thing. Anyway, but okay, we'll set that aside. Maybe I'm just unlucky. Reviewers curse, we don't know. So let's have a look around in here. Probably the thing most people want to know about is that 2.4 gig antenna. Here it is, way up here, wherever I can get it into shot. I might have to move the camera a little here. There we go. There's the 2.4 gig antenna. What does it say on there? Air gain. Yeah, air gain. Don't believe that. It's just a circuit board antenna, focus camera. It is a PCB antenna, and they're used generally for short range stuff, not for long range stuff. Because remember the wavelength that we're looking at for 2.4 gigahertz, I forget what it is. I'd have to work it out. But anyway, 100 mils or something. I don't know, just 90, 80 mils. This is way short of a the decent size. When you compare that to a 2.4 gig sleeve dipole, this is a pretty short piece of kit. And generally speaking, antennas, rule of thumb, not always true, but mostly speaking, the more metal you have in the game, the more your antenna is going to work better. So that's why your 5/8 length antenna gives more gain than a quarter wave antenna. And that's why antennas with lots of metal like helicals give more gain than a plain antenna, just a single dipole antenna. So yeah, this will work for line of sight, but don't go expecting to get long range FPV on 2.4 with this setup here. You're not going to be a happy camper if you do. Right, so one of the key things that we're looking at here, the thing that makes the Jumper stand out from the RadioMaster at the moment, or at least the ones I've got, is we have the JP5N1, which is the multi-protocol RF module. So this does 900 megahertz, it does 2.4 gigahertz, and one of the downsides on 900 megahertz, I think it's only 300 milliwatts. So it's not going to melt your toast. It's not going to cook your eggs for you. If you want to go a long way, you can go a long way on 300 milliwatts. But if you're a real fanatical long ranger, you'll still use a module in the back, which would make this kind of redundant. Let's take a look at the pots. What are the pots like? Okay, we've got resistive pots. They look like fairly good quality pots on there. Yeah, nothing to complain about. It's fairly standard fare. I mean, nothing jumps out and says to me, this is brilliant or this is bad. We should have some bearings in the pots somewhere. Let's have a look. Yeah, I can see a couple of bearings down there. It's a bit hard to get them on the camera, but look like they may be quad bearing pots. Can't really tell. And one of the things that everyone wants to see gone, of course, was those flat flex, the white flat flex cables, which caused issues. Now they've got these little just regular wire, bundled wire connectors to standard board mount connections there. So that's all pretty good. The only flat flex in the whole damn thing is this mangled one down here. We've got a little primary battery here, a little lithium cell battery to keep the clock and other stuff current. Yeah, well, I mean, not much else. Up here we've got the switches. The switches are on daughter boards, which is always a good look. So where are we, if I can get them in shot? Yeah, switches are on daughter boards with little plugins, so you don't have to have heat shrink and stuff over the switch connections. Oh, I've got no problems with that. That's all fine. These little pots here, I can't see any kind of detent mechanism on them. So that's probably why you can't feel one. It's just like, there is something vague there, but it's really not. I don't know what it is, but yeah, certainly not effective. Not an effective detent. Much else to see? No. Not much else to see. Very little else to see. This is the thing with modern radios. They get most of the work is done by that great big fat ARM processor there. Look at the size of that damn thing. That's where most of the work is done. I can't see that on the camera there, but I'll have a look and I'll put a note as to what version of ARM it is, but it's probably going to be the same as in the original Jumper. And yeah, that's just where everything happens. It's interesting. This whole trend away from separate ICs towards a large microcontroller chip like that was started with the Turnigy or the FlySky 9X. They used an AMD processor, 8-bit processor, and they did everything on the chip, which is more or less what happens in the modern radios. Everything's done on this chip. There's no separate analog to digital converters usually or any of that sort of stuff. It's all done on the chip, and it makes it really, really cheap. That's why these radios don't cost much, because the software is free. It's OpenTX. They don't have to pay for the software. I mean, it's open source. So all they have to do is make a bit of electronics, wire it all together, stick it in a plastic case, bingo, there's your transmitter. That's why they can sell these things for such an amazingly low price with functions and features that just a few years ago would have cost you thousands of dollars in a Futaba or a JR radio. Yeah, it's amazing. And we're all benefiting from that. Fantastic. Right, so that's that one. Yeah, other thing down here is the haptic vibrating motor. It's fairly standard fare, a little eccentric weight there. So when your transmitter buzzes and shakes, it's just this little off-centered weight spinning around on a motor. Same sort of things in phones. It's quite a common setup, right? So I say nothing spins my wheels, nothing makes me too worried. And so let's take the back off the RadioMaster and compare. Once again, let's get the battery out of the equation. I don't know if I've got cells in this one. I don't have any. No, I don't got any cells in this, so that's okay. But I'll take that out anyway. There we go. And this has got writing in it. Warning, because remember, another benefit of the RadioMaster, it has a built-in charger through the USB port. With the Jumper, you have to charge your batteries in a separate charging unit. If you don't have one, that's a bit of a pain in the backside actually, because obviously you want to balance charge them, so you can't even just sort of like put that on your charger. There's no balance lead. So yeah, this is a more sophisticated way of doing it. Now, just worth noting is that that they did actually put charging in the Jumper Pro, but it didn't work properly. So they obviously thought, we can't work out how chargers work, so we'll leave that out of the new Jumper. But RadioMaster have built it in. So let's see, we should have the same process here as I had before. These hand grips are much harder to get out because they are much bigger and fatter. So I'm going to do another jump cut here. Something I just noticed here is actually the fit of the case isn't that flash on the RadioMaster. Let's take a closer look at that. I haven't taken any screws out yet, but look at the gap in there. You can actually see the switch. See that? See the body of the switch. If the camera will focus and the lighting was right, you can see. And that gap is all the way around over this side too. So you can see the switch and see there's quite a gap there. I guess that could be for cooling. That's what I'd say if I found I'd made a mistake. Yeah, that's just a cooling slot. That's fine. But yeah, interesting. And of course, let me just pull out a bit here. The side covers come off like as they do in the thing. I know I've got to get these off. These are a bit harder to get off. Hang on a minute. I'll just find something sharp. And if you're into bling, here's something worth noting. Look, the RadioMaster uses a silver screw and the Jumper uses a black screw. And the silver screw is a bit bigger actually. So they're obviously using completely different mouldings for the casing. But trivia time, you might get asked that one day and then you'll know. And because I've done this sort of thing many times before, I didn't try and prise those off. I thought, let's just try it. There may not be screws under there. In fact, there aren't. So you don't have to take those covers off, which is good because it'd be a bit of a job, I think, to get at the... Oh, look, and this is another... Oh, this is great. Because there is no transmitter antenna built into the back, this whole cover comes off. There's no leads. When you're doing something on the bench, it's so nice if you don't have to deal with a transmitter back that is attached by a lead that you can break and pull off. If Ian from... what's his... I can't remember. Mad RC. Anyway, he would have pulled the lead off and broken it because he's good at that. Don't take offence, Ian. Right, so let's have a look in here. In fact, let's do a side-by-side because I think that's probably going to be the easiest way. And just to show you, see, this is the lead. I can't take the back right off that because it's got that crappy little 2.4 gig antenna. Maybe we will do a mod on that and I'll do that as a project. So here we go, side-by-side. I don't know if I've seen this on the YouTube yet, anyone putting these two things totally side-by-side, but I'm doing it for you. Doing it for you here. Right, what have we got? Now, the boards are... They are different. They probably won't have changed the electronics, but the layout is slightly different. In fact, yeah, it's quite a bit of difference, to be totally honest. I'm surprised at how different the two boards are. So that's going to be interesting. Let's see if we can pick holes in them and find out which one is the best. Now, I expect they're using exactly the same processor, but I can't read them here with the lighting and camera angles and as it is. But here we go. We've still got a little coin cell. This has a separate... it's a WinBond, so what is that? I'll have to check it out. It's probably maybe a memory chip, but I don't think there's got enough memory in them. I'll have to see what the WinBond chip is, and I will, maybe I'll do a full follow-up on the boards later on once I've had a chance to evaluate them, but let's just do a quick browse first. Now, there's no mangled ribbon cable in this one. Bonus points. Thank goodness for that. There is a ribbon cable, and this is the ribbon cable here, which goes up to the display. So they've got the display coming up the top, and it's a much nicer setup. The ribbon cable is well out of the way. It's not mangly. So bonus points to RadioMaster from that. The cable management isn't really any better or worse. Actually, I don't know. These are flapping about in the breeze a bit, but it's a very flexible cable. Up here, they've got daughter boards. Oops, sorry. Let me go to macro so I can tell you what I'm talking about in more detail. Just like the Jumper, they've got PCBs on the switches, but they're a much smaller PCB, and the wire sort of goes. Where is the wire? I don't know. I can't see. Yeah. Anyway. Oops. Sorry. Out of shot. So they got PC boards on the switches, but I might even give the cable management to Jumper, to be totally honest. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, but they've got a little zip tie on here to keep things together. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe a draw, but yeah, I'd be leaning towards Jumper's cable management actually. Maybe because I had so much trouble the last time with those flat flecks. Now, yeah, and there's a much better detent. You can see how that. You watch. I'll push it. It'll click. Yeah, it clicks into the center position. That's brilliant. Yeah. No, that is a much better detent. I don't know how they're doing that. I'm not going to pull it apart and find out. But it's a slightly different pot unit. I think they've used a slightly different pot unit too. Maybe that's where the secret comes from. Now the stick units are a lot different. I mean, let's do a side by side on the stick units. There is this macro only does one setting. There is the RadioMaster. There is the Jumper. Huge difference. The RadioMaster is quite a bit simpler. These are Hall effect sticks, so there's not a lot in a Hall effect stick. You don't need pots and stuff. Everything's a bit lighter, a bit smaller. The tension adjust for the throttle is just a simple strap, which is a much longer strap than on the Jumper. Yeah, there's really not a lot. I mean, they're both, looking at inside, I've got very few complaints with either of these radios. The design of the circuit board looks okay. We'll just go down to a component level and just see whether they're what the board soldering is like, the quality of assembly. I suspect they're going to be identical, but you never know. Now, I have noticed some differences. They're very interesting, some differences going on here, and it's the choice of capacitors. Now, this is the Jumper. This is the RadioMaster. It has this big tantalum capacitor here. These capacitors can be problematic. Tantalums have not got the best reputation in the industry. Sometimes they just explode. Sometimes smoke comes out unexpectedly. It's a bit interesting, actually. But one thing I've noticed is, and we've got the power circuitry here. Let me just show you if I get it into shot. Yeah, here's a couple of inductors. So we've got them switch mode regulators for all the voltages used inside. This is basically, in other words, it's a BEC to give you different voltages from the battery supply, which is needed to drive all the electronics on board. But if we look at this, there's not a lot of capacitors, not a lot of high-value capacitors. Like tantalums are used because you can get a lot of capacitance in a small package. So we look around, there's not a lot of capacitors on this board, actually. There's very few caps on that board. We've got some ceramic capacitors over here, but ceramics aren't known for their high capacity. They don't produce as much microfarads per cubic centimetre as tantalum. If we go across to the Jumper, one thing I noticed immediately, look at all the capacitors in here. I'll just try and get this lined up, it's a bit hard. But these round things, for those who don't know what capacitors look like, these round things here, they're capacitors. These are polymer capacitors. So you look like electrolytic capacitors, but they have a solid dielectric. So these are pretty reliable, pretty good. There's no real issues with these. They've got a lot of them though. 1, 2, 3, 4 big ones there, and no more. And yeah, so I don't know why there's that massive difference in the power supplies. As I say, I will probably do a more in-depth look at the circuitry on these transmitters. I wasn't expecting it to be quite so different, so that's a bit of an eye-opener. And I think it deserves another video, just looking more closely at the choices that have been made. But it is still a 50-50 in terms of the electronics. They both are quite acceptable. I don't see any deal breakers there. Yeah, cool. I like it. But let's take a look at something that I know everyone else is going to be asking. On the Jumper, are we able to replace this fairly compromised circuit board antenna with a proper antenna, a sleeve dipole, which is commonly what we use on these radio transmitters? And if we look down here, yes, we can. There's a micro UFL here, or UFL connector there, which goes off to that antenna. So you can just pull this off here. You could drill a hole in the case, whack a SMA connector on, put on your favorite 2.4 gigahertz sleeve dipole, and you get much better results. It's going to look pretty bodgy though. It's going to look pretty dodgy. In fact, it's having two antennas poking out the top. I think, and also the other thing is the 900 megahertz antenna on the. Let me just put things back so we can get a better view of stuff here. Hang on, jump cut. Right, so they've given you this rubber ducky antenna here, and this must be what we call a loaded antenna. If it's 900 megahertz, it must be loaded because it's not long enough to be a good 900 megahertz antenna. Let me just show you, here is a sleeve dipole 900 megahertz antenna. So what we have here is the active piece, and this is a tube that runs down the outside, which is a counterpoise to the main radiator. So it has a nice isotropic radiation pattern. So that's how much you need for 900 megahertz. You've got less than that in this antenna. It's not long enough to be 900 megahertz, and there's no counterpoise. It's probably wound, it'll be coiled in there. I should rip it apart. It'll be coiled up in there. And as I say, it's really a case of how much metal you've got in the game. This has got a lot more metal in the game than that. So at 900 megahertz, this antenna, I don't think it's going to be very efficient, very effective, which is a shame because you're already limited to 300 milliwatts on this radio. If you want to do long range FPV with 900 megahertz, I wouldn't buy the built-in system. I would buy an external module. I get a Crossfire module. This does R9, but R9, it's such a dog's breakfast of a system. I've got R9 gear here and I can't get it all to talk to each other. Sometimes it'll talk. I can't find a consistent version of the software that will enable all my receivers and stuff to work. So I've given up on R9. It's a free sky, shot yourself in the foot with that one. And Crossfire just works so damn well. Crossfire is extremely good. So I wouldn't even bother with the R9 side of things. I just buy yourself a Crossfire module, stick it in the back. Then you can run higher power levels. You can put it in another transmitter if you decide to go to another transmitter. You save yourself money on buying the original. Simple as. So get yourself a RadioMaster and whack a crossfire module in the back. That's what I would do if you want to do long-range FPV on 900 megahertz. Don't fart around with a makeshift solution like this. It's not very good. And the other thing is, it boils down to intellectual property as well. I don't know if Jumper or RadioMaster is licensed crossfire technology off TBS. I mean, TBS developed it. They put the time and money into it. They produced it. If they have done that and you buy a RadioMaster or a Jumper with crossfire support on a multi-protocol module, are they paying the royalty to TBS? Now, in the case of, normally I'm not too much off clone receivers for, FreeSky. That's life. FreeSky makes its money out of selling its transmitters and other things. But in the case of TBS, they're kind of a small company by most standards, and I've met Trappy, he's a nice guy. I'd like to see people supporting the genuine product rather than going the clone way, with this company at least, because Trappy puts a lot of effort into the hobby. And it's his passion. He's not just a corporate suit in an office box somewhere. He's a guy that flies FPV. He loves the hobby. So we need to support people like that. I know that's going to make me unpopular because Trappy has a few enemies out there. But hey, I would buy a crossfire module and put it in without paying extra on this for the crossfire compatible, unless there's been a licensing deal done. I don't know. Maybe I should find out. Why? Yeah, I'll find out. See if I can find out. If I can't find out, then I don't know. Maybe Trappy, if you're watching this video, chime in. Have they paid you money for crossfire? I don't know. There you go. So yeah, that's basically it. Let's summarize this, see what we found. So welcome to the end of the video and the summary. So I'd have to say, yeah, the RadioMaster gets my choice, gets my pick. Now, if you bought either of these radios, you'd be pretty happy. I mean, they're both really functional radios. They both deliver so much bang for the buck compared to just a few years ago that you're not going to, if you've bought one of these, don't feel that you should go and slit your wrists, because this is still a good radio. It's still a great radio. It's just that this one's a little bit better, in my opinion. Just to summarize why I like this a bit more, well, this one has Hall effect sticks. These sticks feel nicer than this one. They did send me Hall effect. I haven't put them in, so that's probably not a fair thing. I like the extra buttons for page up, page down. That's really nice. I like the fact that this is a professional feeling thumbwear. It just has much nicer feel to it. It really does feel like a quality product compared to that. I like the fact that this has all the more expandability along the bottom. You've got options, you've got choices on this. I like the fact that this has a bigger battery compartment, so I could use a LiPo in there instead of just 18650 cells if I chose to. I like the fact that this has, what was I going to say? I've forgotten. Oh no, it was something else. What was it? Oh, it has a battery charger, of course. I can charge my lithium-ion batteries through the USB-C port, built-in charger. That's just to make life so much simpler. Even if the damn thing goes flat at the field, just plug it into the car's USB connector and away we go. Charge it up enough for a few flights. This, you have to take your cells out, stick them in a separate battery compartment. And I think the deciding factor, the final thing is, the film's already coming off on this one, and I never take the film off. This one will never come off, so... But that's it, folks. Yeah, both good radios. If you want to go the long range way, I still honestly think that you're going to have more flexibility, more choice, more options by buying something like this without the 5-in-1 module, without the 900 megahertz, and just sticking a crossfire, or if you want to go FreeSky, an R9 or M9 module in the back there. It just gives you more options. What I would do is buy a foldy handle, because I really like the foldy handle, and it's let's have a look and see, would that foldy handle fit on there? Maybe I should just change them over. Have they changed the dimensions at all of the mounting points? And I think they might have. Ooh, that's a bit of a hassle. Where's my ruler? I'm going to measure this because I would love to put a foldy handle on the RadioMaster. Let's just see whether they would actually fit. Now the spacings on the Jumper, have they deliberately designed it so you can't? That is... from outside to outside, it is 11.3 millimeters. Let's get that right now. 11.5 mils. 11.5 mils. Let's see what it is on this one. Is this a deal breaker? 11.5 millimeters. Yeah, it's not going to work, folks. It's not going to work. This handle from there. So I beg RadioMaster, please come out with a foldy handle, because we would love a foldy handle. But then I can use it in my pack much more easily than that. This, sorry, don't like it at all. So there you go. It's, as I say, it's a game of pluses and minuses, and nothing's perfect. But there you go. I hope you've learned something from this. I hope this has given you the information you need to make an informed purchasing decision. There will be follow-up videos because I do want to look more closely at what they've done with those circuit boards. changes they may have made, and which one, technically speaking, may be superior to the other. But they're so damn close at this stage, it's an even call from the internal side of things. It might even give some of it to the Jumper with the better cable management. I don't know. But that's it, folks. Thank you for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. You make it all possible for me to spend the time to do these things and to give you the information that you like. And I will now get on with other stuff. It's a fine day. Hopefully I'll get some flight videos done. You never know your luck. Thanks for watching, guys. By the way, questions, do the commenty bit. I don't know if I said that, but do that anyway. And spot you later. No mid-rolls. Bye for now.